Hello and welcome back. This is our next fifth grade math video, and this video focuses on estimating products. So estimating is where we're not going to calculate the actual answer. We're just going to get an idea of what the answer should be almost about. It's about how much. And products are the answer to multiplication questions. So we're going to be estimating the answers to multiplication equations. So we're going to use our previous knowledge of rounding and our previous knowledge of multiplying numbers ending in zeros in order to estimate this product. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go ahead and check out some of my previous videos about rounding and also about multiplying numbers ending in zeros. And that'll help you out before we start this. Okay, so it says we're going to estimate the product by rounding each factor to the nearest 10. So now we know what we're rounding these numbers to. So I'm going to write 93 over here and 86 over here. We need to round each of these to the nearest 10. So we're going to identify the digits that are in the tens place for each number. Then we're going to look to the digit just to the right of that for each number as well. When we're rounding, if the digit is 5 or more, that means we're going to raise the underlying digit. If the digit is 4 or less, we're going to leave the underlying digit alone. So you can see over here in 93, the digit next to the one we're rounding is 3, which is 4 or less. So that means 9 is going to stay the same. I'm just going to bring it down. In 86, the digit next to the 8 is 6, which is 5 or more. So that means I need to raise the 8 up from an 8 to a 9. Now, everything, once we decide what's going to happen to that underlying digit, everything to the right of it becomes a 0. So 3 becomes a 0 and 6 becomes a 0. Now we can multiply these two numbers together, 90 times 90, to figure out what this would, or how much this would be about. So I'm going to focus on the digits that are not zeros. That would be 9 and 9. 9 times 9 is 81. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. Then after I do that, I'm going to go ahead and add the zeros that were in the problem. So it looks like we have 2 zeros that were in the original problem. So we're going to add them right here after the 81. So to estimate the product of 93 times 86, we would say that it is about, with a wavy equal sign, 8,100. So that's not exactly what the answer is, but that's about how much it should be. Okay, here's our next one. We're going to estimate the product by rounding each factor to the nearest 10. So I'm going to take 58 over here and 33 over here. So I'm going to identify the digit that's in the 10 place for both. That would be the 5 and this first 3 over here. When I look to the right of the 5, I notice it's 8, which is definitely 5 or more. So that means this 5 gets raised up to be a 6, and then everything to the right becomes a 0. So 58 rounds to 60. Now for 33, I look to the right of the underlying digit, and that is 4 or less. That means the underlying digit stays the same. So that's going to remain a 3, but everything to the right of the underlying digit becomes a 0. So that means to estimate this, I need to multiply 60 times 30. So I'm going to focus now on the digits that are not zeros, the 6 and the 3. Well, 6 times 3 is 18. And now I'm going to add the 2 zeros from the original problem to the end of the 18. So that means the product of 58 times 33 is about 1,800. So remember, it's not exactly 1,800, but it is about that much. Okay, here's our next one. We're going to estimate the product by rounding the first factor to the nearest 100 and then the second factor to the nearest 10. Oh, that was a little wavy. Let me try that again. Second factor to the nearest 10. There we go. So I'm going to write 874 over here and 46 over here. So that first factor we need to round to the nearest 100. So I'm going to underline the digit in the hundreds place. And the second factor gets rounded to the nearest 10. So I'm going to underline the digit in the tens place. So for the first factor, I'm going to go look right next to the underlying digit and I see a 7. Well, since 7 is 5 or more, that means the 8 gets raised up to a 9. Then everything to the right of the underlying digit becomes 0. So this rounds up to 900. For 46, I'm going to look at the digit just to the right of the 4, and that is 5 or more. So that means the 4 gets raised up to a 5, and then everything to the right of the underlying digit becomes a 0. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply these two together to get the estimation. So to estimate these, or multiply these together to finish getting the estimation, I'm going to focus on the digits that are not 0. That would be 9 and 5. 9 times 5 is 45. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply those. Then I need to go ahead and add all those zeros from the problem to the end of the 45. So that'd be 1, 2, 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. So that my estimation of 874 times 46 is about 45,000 right there. Okay, here's our next one. We're going to estimate the product by rounding the first factor to the nearest 100 and the second factor to the nearest 10. So the first factor is 466 and the second factor is 33. So the first factor is to the nearest 100. So I'm going to underline the number in the hundreds place. And the second factor is to the nearest 10. So I'm going to underline the digit in the tens place. When I look right next to the 4, I see a 6. Since 6 is 5 or more, that 4 is going to get raised up to a 5. Then everything to the right of the underlying place value becomes 0. So I'm going to round this to 500. Then I need to look next door, next to the 3 in the tens place for my second factor. 3 is 4 or less, which means the 3 is going to stay the same. And then everything to the right will become zeros. So my estimation can be found when I multiply 500 times 30. So I'm going to focus on 5 times 3, which is 15. And then I'm going to add all the zeros from the problem to the end of the 15. 1, 2, 3. So that would be 1, 2, 3 zeros. So that means 466 times 33 is about 15,000. It's not exactly 15,000, but that's about where it should be. Okay, here's our last one for today's video. We're going to estimate the product by rounding the first factor to the nearest 100 and the second factor to the nearest 1,000. So let me go ahead and rewrite those. 439 and 4,819. So the first factor was to the nearest 100 and the second factor was to the nearest 1,000. So in 439, when I look just to the right of the underlying digit, I see a 3. Since 3 is 4 or less, that means that 4 is going to stay the same. And then everything to the right will become zeros. For 4,819, I look right next to the underlying digit and I see an 8. 8 is 5 or more, so 4 gets raised up to a 5, and then all of these become zeros. 1, 2, 3 zeros. To finish my estimation, I'm going to multiply these numbers by focusing on multiplying the 4 and the 5. 4 times 5 is 20. So I'm going to write that first. Then I'm going to go count how many zeros I have to add. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. Barely made it fit. Okay, I'm going to separate these with some commas, and we end up with 2 million. So that means 439 times 4,819 is about 2 million. That's what that wavy equal sign means. It means about this much. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you in another video very soon.